guys, I'm going to be talking about Greek life today, more specifically why fraternities make college campuses unsafe. I'd first like to ask, specifically the women in the room, that if you've ever been to a fraternity party, I guarantee you felt unsafe in any situation given just certain factors. So in case people are unaware of what Greek life is, because I know we're in college but not everyone's super interested in it, they are selective single-sex organizations where members have a common value or common goals. And in the briefest terms, I can simplify it to, the purpose of these organizations are to be a home away from home when you get to college. So I'm sure people have also seen Greek life all over the media. There's TV shows like Scream Queens, Neighbors, movies like Goat. So a lot of those are stereotypical, but they have a lot of truth to them as well. So my credibility is I'm in a sorority, so I've seen things from the inside, as well as just seeing it in the media and also learning about it in different classes I've taken. So the two main points I will be speaking on today are that fraternity men are more likely to perpetrate rape and sexual assault, and that the hazing rituals men must go through are dangerous and degrading. So first, the fact that fraternity men are more likely to perpetrate rape and sexual assault. I want to clear up the difference between the two, because I feel like they kind of get clumped together and it's important to know the two differences. So sexual assault, defined by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, is defined as offensive remarks about a person's sex, unwanted sexual advantages, or requests for sexual favors, as well as they do not have to be sexual in nature and can just be offensive remarks about a person's sex. So technically under this commission, it's illegal to make jokes that are offensive about women as a whole. And then, on the other hand, rape is defined by the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics by forced sexual intercourse, including both psychological coercion as well as physical force. Forced sexual intercourse means penetration by the offender, including attempted rape, as from both male and female victims, as both heterosexual and homosexual rape. And attempted rape is also kind of in this as any sort of verbal threats. So I just wanted to clear up the two just because I feel like they get kind of a little mixed up together. So specifically talking about colleges in relation to fraternities with these two. So statistics have shown that in a 3-to-1 ratio, fraternity men are more likely to perpetrate rape than a non-affiliated college man. There have been numerous studies that have found that 1 in 5 or 20% of college women will be raped in their 4 years. And this was done by a bunch of national surveys, and I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen the movie The Hunting Grounds. It kind of goes over and talks a lot about that, and studies found by those women, the number might be closer to about 25%. And however, something that I personally found shocking when I was looking all this stuff up was that the number triples to about 74% when we're looking about women in a sorority. So I personally have 2 close friends, one who is in a sorority and one who is not in a sorority, that were sexually assaulted at different frat parties. So there's also some invalidity when we're talking about rape statistics because of non-reporting. So the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, or RAIN, wrote that out of 1,000 rapes in the United States, only 310 will be reported. Out of those 310 reported, only 57 arrests will be made. Out of the 57 arrests that will be made, only 11 will be referred to prosecution. And out of those 11, only 7 will lead to a felony conviction. And out of those 7, only 6 out of the original 1,000 rapists will be incarcerated. Numbers like these often show why victims don't come forward. So like I was talking about one of my friends who was sexually assaulted at a fraternity party. So there's a lot of sort of things that went into it for her, but one of the main things is that there's a precedent in this country that people don't like it when women talk about this. If you look at cases like Brock Turner, the Stanford rapist, who was, I think that was about 2 years ago. So for her, her assailant was a white Christian fraternity male in his early 20s with wealthy parents. And all of this sort of led to believe that her crime would not be respected and any justice would come from it, so she decided to just move on from it. So then, to my second point, the hazing rituals that fraternity men must go through are dangerous and degrading. So every year, people die from fraternity hazing. Just in 2017 alone, 4 males have died. So this doesn't seem like a huge number, especially if you're looking at all the different people who go to college, but still, 4 men had to die for a college club. So also to bring this into more current events, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the fraternity pledge at Penn State, who he was very intoxicated because his brothers kept basically force feeding him alcohol, and he ended up passing away, and they didn't even report this until 12 hours after. So the trial is ongoing. There's no really explanation for this yet. And then some examples of hazing, just in case you're unaware. So one that's very common is you'll get kidnapped from your bed at night, you'll be blindfolded, driven to the middle of the desert, left with no food or water, and you're expected to find your way back. Another is swallowing a live fish, then you're forced to vomit it up, and if the fish isn't alive, you must do it again. And there's a lot of other sort of weird, gross ones as well, but not going to go into that. And then, so there's people often wonder, like, why does hazing still go on? Like, this is horrible and gross, like, why would you still do that? And whenever you ask, like, people, the older members of an organization, they're always like, well, we went through it, like, why shouldn't they have to? Like, you have to prove yourself. So, lastly, I would also like to say that there's numerous other issues within fraternities, including homophobia, racism, misogyny, but I didn't have time to touch on those today. And then just to summarize, fraternity men are more likely to perpetrate rape and sexual assault from a 3-to-1 ratio, and that the hazing is very dangerous and degrading, and there's no reason why someone has to die to join a club in college. So, some questions I have for you guys are, will we ever have legislation passed? A lot of people have been talking about this, but nothing really ever ends up like going through with it. So just sort of a last thing to think about, a lot of congressmen are alumni of fraternity organizations. So do you think that they have internal biases about these organizations that like stop them from making legislation that will help protect college students? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it's a little vague as to what the proposition is. I know the general warning that you're giving at the beginning, but I don't know what the claim is. I know what the secondary claims are. They're very specific. You identify that. Frat guys are rapists and sexual assaulters, and the hazing rituals of fraternities are dangerous. So we've got those claims. Those are clearly stated. How they fit together is a little unclear, except as a general attack on fraternities. So I think that you need to, specify that attack. I know that the direction it's going in, but I'm not exactly sure what the final inference is going to be. And at the end of the speech, it sounds like you're actually arguing that there's a different issue that's going on here, that they are being protected in some way, that legislation is not being directed at these kinds of issues, that there is not any pursuit of these particular points. There's probably a little bit more controversy on some of those issues also. The information that you present, there's some statistical information that I think is pretty good that you provide some sources for. There's other statistical information that you provide that comes down to it's been reported or studies say or I heard it in a movie, and I think I need to have better sourcing on that information. The definition of rape by the DOJ and the definition of sexual assault that you provide, those are okay because you do give a source on that sort of thing. Some of the other statistics I think are a little bit problematic. You make a reference to a case up in, I think it was at Stanford that you talked about, and you don't really tell us what's going on. It sounds like the woman didn't press charges, but it sounds like everybody knows about the case, so I'm wondering how this is an issue if this has become, part of the public domain, something that's discussed there. So I'm not exactly sure the way that you present the example supports the position that you're taking. The number of people who've died because of hazing, I need a source on that. You do make a general reference to this Penn State example. I've heard something about that in passing. There's nothing wrong with giving us a source citation on that. And on the other hand, there's also a trial, and apparently people are being prosecuted for this. So I'm wondering, well, how does that fit in with your notion that this kind of stuff goes unpunished or people don't pay attention to it? You did a better job on that with the statistics that you're presenting on the first point than you did on the second point. The issue of hazing, for instance, is your second point, and you've got examples of hazing, but I don't know how frequently those occur. I don't know that they occur in every fraternity. I certainly don't know that they have the extreme kinds of things that you're talking about where people are dropped off in the desert with nothing, or they're swallowing goldfish and spitting them back up again. I'm not saying that those things don't occur. I've heard of those kinds of things. I just don't know how typical they are, and you make it sound like that happens to everybody who joins a fraternity. You know, we get one frat. Where are you? You get one frat member in here and says, "I never had to vomit a goldfish, and I never, you know, went to the desert in my underwear and had to get back. I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And suddenly, because you don't give us a source citation on this stuff, that's as credible a statement as the other statement. So you need to give us the sourcing on these sorts of things. Like I said, and then I do think you get off on a tangent at the end talking about why it is that we don't have legislation on this. There are a couple of reasons that some legislation can be passed, but there's no evidence that we don't have legislation on this. Hazing, I think, is largely prohibited by most of the colleges and universities. I think there are rules about that. We also have legislation about rape and sexual assault. Your argument is that they don't work. That's not necessarily an argument that says that some additional legislation would work. If there's additional legislation that would work, that should be the claim that you're making, that this piece of legislation that's going nowhere would solve the problem. That would be the argument that's more clearly inferential for your subject. All right, thank you.